There is a lot of work that an opening episode of a season of television has to do, and I would say it is perhaps one of the most important episodes in a season. This episode is supposed to carry forward the momentum of the previous season finale, which, if it's a great series, usually ends at a real captivating moment with questions that you are so excited to explore in the next season. It's also beneficial to remind the audience, even subtly, what happened previously as a reminder, because it takes some time for seasons to come out. Then lastly, it needs to find something to engage us in future episodes of this existing season. Not a lot of TV series can pull this off. The best shows can usually do so quite effortlessly, and not one show, in my opinion, has done it as effectively and as moving as the opening to The Bear Season 3. This season opener takes place directly after the Season 2 finale, where Carm was stuck in the fridge and just has this complete meltdown, leading to some of the most heart-wrenching moments of the entire show. As we know, this show has had some really experimental episodes, from the episode that was comprised of one extremely long take, illustrating the stress of working in a kitchen. You had an episode that was all done in one location, relying on writing and performances, as well as specific episodes capturing the perspective for one specific character. This episode joins that list of more experimental episodes, as it really felt like a sensory experience. Director Christopher Storer manages to weave together this 40-minute piece that relies wholly on cinematography, editing, and the score. There is barely any dialogue spoken in this episode, but it manages to communicate a whole lot to the audience. Jeremy Allen White himself has even discussed this first episode of this new season, describing filming this episode as walking around in someone's mind, and that is kind of the experience that this is. It evokes a lot of emotion, but it feels so fluid and dynamic. It's just filmed in really interesting ways that capture the imagination of the viewer and communicate a lot to us, and gives us all the information that we really want and need from a season opener, from providing that reminder of what happened previously to what to expect in the future, as well as the current state of particular characters that are going to be crucial in this season, and really underlying this whole season and giving it a real direction as to where it's going to head. So in terms of what it progresses within the narrative of The Bear, it doesn't do too much. It really is just there to give the audience a perspective as to where Carm is headed mentally. This episode is him preparing dishes that are going to be crucial within the season. And each dish that he makes and each non-negotiable he writes sets the tone for how he expects his employees to work with him in the future. It is almost a real selfish attitude that Carm has in the beginning of this season, which coincides perfectly with what happened previously. The battle of the bear and this character is to let go a little bit. He has such a firm grasp on the restaurant and where he wants it headed that it slowly is losing its identity and what made it significant in the first place. This episode is all shot from Carm's perspective, him making the dishes and then cutting to the moments that inspired those dishes. Carm is putting all of his energy into these dishes and trying to set forward a direction as to where he thinks this restaurant needs to go to be successful from his own previous experiences. You see him when he's training with Olivia Colman's character, once again learning and loving fine dining and really instilling that passion that he has for cooking, to him dealing with the abusive nature of some restaurants where all of this pressure is put on him, all of this anxiety is placed on him. He also puts that into these dishes. It really is a real tribute to the artistry of cooking and what a dish might mean to someone, and the passion that certain restaurant owners have into the artistry of food and fine dining. And it is this real sprawling portrait from him moments after that really intense episode, Fishes, where the family just goes into this complete nuclear meltdown and Donna crashes her car through their house. It shows you the moments directly after that. It shows you within the next few days where Carm is going off again to be educated in fine dining, and him not accepting money or help is really emblematic of this character. He really believes that only he can solve his own problems. He's so guarded and so defensive that he just does not want to let anyone in. He thinks that he can only trust himself. And from what we have seen previously from the other 2 seasons of this show, you can kind of understand why the people that are closest to him have let him down or left him. So he's very broken as a character and has a lot of healing that he needs to do. And these moments really just reinforce the ideas that Carm has in his head. Now let's talk about that score. Now I thought this was Trent Reznor and Atticus Ross, and I guess it technically is, but it's actually a 9 Inch Nails song called Together, and it was beautifully placed within this film. It really captures the tone of this episode. It has a lot of heart to it, yet it just has that nice electrical touch that Trent Reznor and Atticus Ross like to put on their scores. Really, really loved it, and I love how the Bear kind of revitalizes some scores from this duo. They're some of the best to ever do it, and what is placed within this, I just never wanted to hear it end, and it just doesn't, and it doesn't get boring. I never got sick of it once. It really felt like it played a really big part of driving this narrative forward and really connecting with the editing of this episode. Both those things are so closely linked within this episode, and because of that, it once again can evoke a lot of emotion and tell you so much with this excellent use of visual storytelling. And I just really loved how it was able to put a visual to moments that we kind of knew about, like Sydney being really inspired by cooking due to a dish that Carm had made. You see the pressure that he was under to make that dish, and then you finally see it go out to Sydney and her be really enamored by that dish and see that passion come along her face. She's only really in it for those little moments, and she was excellent. Iowa Debris does a really great job in this episode in conveying these emotions with just a facial expression. She's a really talented actress, and she does a great job in this episode. And just seeing that little story, that little payoff is just once again a really nice touch to this episode. And this really ends on a note of uncertainty. He writes down all of these non-negotiables, which, as we see if you've watched the season, gets carried forward throughout the season and is a real conflicting point for all of the characters, because he's kind of becoming a little bit of a dictator as a restaurant manager. And seeing him be so self-destructive within this episode and the season 2 finale is very sad to see, because you've followed this character for so long and you really connect with him. But the best TV shows really make you feel conflicted about their titular characters. Think Breaking Bad with Walter White, or someone who you really connect with in the beginning and you understand his motivations for going down this darker path. But when you reflect on the show, and as it hits the finale of that show, he's not a great guy. Similar things can be said with Succession. That whole family, they all have their moments where you can kind of connect to them, especially Kendall. And over the course of the show, you realize that maybe he's not that great of a guy after all. And the Bear might be going down a similar path. I like to have hope that there might be redemption for Carm. I do think he's just been thrust under a lot of high pressure circumstances and trying to carry forward some sort of legacy from his own ambitions. And as selfish as that is, it's a feeling that a lot of people can connect with. A lot of people want the best for themselves. They have dreams that they want to carry forward. And Carm prioritizes that above anything else, and that does give him an ego at times, and it does give him this aura that he thinks that he's better than everyone else. And on a talent perspective, maybe that's true, but as a human being, he has a lot of work to do, and this episode perfectly encapsulates all of that after the wake of destruction that he left in the season 2 finale. As a whole, I just really love this episode. I love where the bear goes really experimental and tries something different with its form. It's becoming the identity of this show, and I do think it works to its benefit. I do think the bear might be the best TV show just on right now. You know, Succession is over and there is a bit of a void there, and I really think the bear is picking that up, because episodes like this and character work that is done like this is just so impressive to me and is unlike anything going right now. Really loved what had happened in this episode. I love the way it was constructed. I love the performances and the direction, and to me, this was a perfect episode of television.